Man, I was going to stay out of this one. I have been excellent at not jumping on trends. Hell, I haven't even done a video on that Italian guy that plays real fast with one arm. I think chasing trends smacks of inauthenticity, which is why I've not done a video on this. But then one of my favorite YouTubers went and broke my heart. Anthony Fantano. I'm a huge fan of his. I don't agree with everything that he says because who agrees with 100% of what anyone says? And also, he once retweeted my Death Grips video, signal boosting a very small channel and making me a lot of money, and it is appreciated. And I hope this doesn't turn into too much of a burial because I do like the melon. And I did not want to do a video on this song because everyone has. It has been catnip for music commentary and hell, every kind of commentary channel. I'm talking about Oliver Anthony's Rich Men of Richmond. It's a fine song, and we're going to get into it. I'm going to talk about this song as if you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, go listen to it. If you've been under a rock and not heard about this viral hit, go check that song out and come back, I guess. I'm going to assume that you know what I'm talking about. Anthony Fantano did a video on it, and of course he did because he is pretty good about staying on the cutting edge. And one thing that I've always appreciated about him is he's not scared. That dude buried the Sleep Token video. That's a ballsy move. But his video on Oliver Anthony's Rich Men of Richmond had some really great takes, but one that was almost unforgivable in my eyes. Look, I am from the area that this song comes from. Not exactly the one, but definitely I am in geographical vicinity of where this man comes from. And Anthony Fantano, in his breakdown, first, let's talk about the good thing that he did. He talked about the socioeconomic and specifically the welfare state lyrics from that song. And man, when I heard him talk about fudge rounds, I knew he was setting himself up to become a meme. I had 2 fudge rounds a day. They're the most perfect snack. What Anthony said about the economic part is absolutely dead on. If you're going to complain about people being on welfare, you need to talk about corporate welfare and war welfare. That's a far bigger expense than someone who is just taking some personal welfare food stamps. He's dead on about that. But what he's completely wrong, and so wrong because I know about this title and the geographical location that gave you the title of the song way better than him, because I used to play in Richmond and Washington, D.C. back to back many, many times. It was part of my band's regional touring area. Because Anthony Fantano is trying to distance himself from his dark 4channy hanging out with Sam Hyde past, sometimes he overcorrects his takes. He tried to say that Oliver Anthony was making a Confederate versus the North argument with the title Rich Men from Richmond. That's not it at all. Now, I will say it's a ballsy move to put Richmond in the title of the song because that is the capital of the Confederacy. But if you know your geography, you need to geography better. Richmond is just due south of Washington, D.C. If you go up I-95 north, you will run into Washington, D.C. The whole point of the song's title is the rich men in Washington, D.C. And if you were a songwriter, you would understand that that's a play on words. Rich men north of Richmond. He's talking about Washington, D.C. He's not setting up some straw man or steel man, whichever way you want to put it, of the North versus the South. What he's talking about is his own experiences. Now, I haven't talked about the song that much. It's a fine song. He's definitely a child of Tyler Childers, and that's a good thing. So is Luke Bryan. There's a lot of country singers running around being Tyler Childers clones, and the guy kind of is, but he's talented. The song's fine. It's a fine song. There are some things in that song that I really agree with, and there's parts of that song where I think that he is not as economically educated as he needs to be to speak upon. It's not a perfect song. It's a good song. It's a good song. I don't like that it has been co-opted by a side. And this is another thing. Maybe I'll talk about the people who are on the left attacking this. Do you all really think that like Arlo Guthrie and Bob Dylan would be Democrats? They sure as hell wouldn't be Republicans, but they wouldn't be Democrats either. This song is probably one of the most punk rock things I've ever heard. If you've listened to Propaganda and when Rage Against the Machine actually meant that shit, it's kind of the same sentiment with some mishandling of socioeconomic facts. Or it seems like you have to make art that is pre-prescribed to a certain ideology. It almost makes me not want to make music anymore because I don't want my art to be polarizing. I want it to be enjoyed. And I don't like how you have to, or it feels like now you have to say that you're on someone's side for them to like your song. Now, lucky for him, he's a talent. This guy's great. He can sing. The resonator guitar is actually a really smart choice, but we're not talking about that. Anthony Fantano. Do better with your geography and maybe do just a smidgen of research. That song is called Rich Men North of Richmond because it's a play on geographical placement. Richmond is here. Washington, D.C. is here. I think we should all be able to get behind the fact that nobody on either side in Washington, D.C. has anybody's interests at heart. That is something that I think should bring all of us together. Really? Do you think that these blood-stained monsters in DC on either side of the aisle care or give a fuck about you? Back in the day, people on one side would completely agree with me, and I don't like that the people on this other side completely agree with me now. We should take that song as a snapshot of what we should be doing, which is both sides getting together, ganging up, and dealing with the masters of the universe who's trying to fuck us around. And I think that's the biggest point of that song. Anthony Fantano, get a fucking map.